when we start talking about, when you're working with a family, okay,
Yeah.
multi-generational family business, getting ready to go through these things, how are you mapping out and how are you getting them to think about themselves as a system? What are the questions? What are the things that we need to be focusing on ourselves that we might be able to, start to really see through these things differently?
A complete family multi-generational diagram with really, really good questions. That's where the hard work is, in the preparation of it's asking the question that doesn't have a leading answer. It's an open curiosity of doing a multi-generational family diagram, and also looking at a timeline. If you do a timeline of critical events, both positive and negative, and ask people to reflect on what was happening in the business and the family, might those connect for you? In what ways would they connect? When we did the timeline and we saw the diagnosis and the mother leaving within a month of each other, you can ask the question, honestly, what might the correlation be between that and the startup of the business? Oh, it's the questions that take so much time, because if I went in there with an answer to it, my questions would be more skewed and would have an edge to them. This theory, and I feel like this has been my way to deal with it, but provides a map for curiosity and a map to really think through the forces that we're all up against as life goes on and a business goes on. So family diagram, timeline with critical events, and the connection between the two. And then some people will get, oh, maybe that's connected. Then you ask, well, how did the daughters get invited in? Well, they didn't really get invited in. We gave them such large salary. Oh, is that something you want to continue, which is a kind of pay policy that reflects the state of the family? Well, I don't think so. So you can begin to build with questions.
I love it. So what when you have that timeline and you're mapping the good and the good and bad events throughout somebody's lifetime,
right?
What you do is think about that for a second. See if I got this. So now we've got that reptilian brain, and I hit a wall 30 years ago and it hurt. And I made a mistake and I never thought through it. I never self-actualized what was going on and what I was feeling. And now 30 years later, something happens within the family. My kids do something and my reaction didn't have anything to do with the kids or the business or why I was doing it. It has to go back to 30 years ago. Is that correct?
Bingo.
Okay.
What is it they do in charades? You tip your nose when you're right. You're spot on. And people will come to this if it's framed. And it's not leading, you're not leading for an answer. You are genuinely curious, because both the highs and the lows sync with the business and the family. And you can watch that pretty carefully, in my experience.
Interesting. My father went through our friend John Engel's training.
Really?
I have not. Long story, but so long. Dad was part of the process, was to sit down with me and kind of unwrap some things. And what you don't know is my biological father died when I was 5. Marty, my father, married my mom, and my biological father was an alcoholic, and my father, emotionally sometimes was reactive. How's that? Well, that's and it wasn't nothing horrible, but just reactive.
Yeah.
And so what he said to me was based on that conversation. He goes, "You, my son, have to deal with the sins of 2 fathers," and that was both it was a huge relief to sit back and allow myself the time to say, it's not just me. I grew up biologically and genetically, and in the household of of Marty, and you put those pieces together, and it allowed me to take time to go back and reflect and say, And then, to look at some of my behaviors and say, how much of that did I inherit and how much of that did I learn? And how do I unpack and unravel some of the things that I'm not so loving about, those things. I love it. This is great and helpful.
Well, you have a lot of good resources in that area. A lot of them that are colleagues of Thomasina and mine, and John's course is excellent. So, how do you learn? I keep learning all the time about leadership and about tension and conflict and what can one do to sit in the middle of it. So I think if you're interested in relationships and business, it provides lifelong learning and curiosity. And I think that's been a real gift of knowing this theory.
Agreed. Leaders are learners.